May 1870, a sunny afternoon in Loyal Valley, Texas. 11-year-old Herman Lehman is laughing with his brother Willie and sister Caroline, shooing birds from their family's wheat field. Then, out of nowhere, Apache warriors with painted faces charge in. Herman's heart pounds as he bolts, but Chief Carnavista grabs him, slaps him, rips his clothes, and tosses him onto a horse. Thorns tear his skin, the sun burns his back, and he later writes, "Death just then would have been a relief." This isn't a movie, it's real. In 1870, Apache raids killed or kidnapped over 1,000 settlers in Texas, with 200 to 300 captives taken in a decade, many never seen again. The Apache weren't just fighters, they were masters of survival, outsmarting 5,000 U.S. troops stationed in Texas with guerrilla tactics. Herman's story isn't just survival, it's a clash of worlds, a boy forced to become a warrior. Critics might say he was brainwashed, but was it adaptation, not betrayal, that kept him alive? How does a child forget his family and become Apache? And what happens when he's forced back to a world he no longer knows? It's May 10, 1870, and 11-year-old Herman Lehman is out in his family's wheat field near Loyal Valley, Texas, with his 8-year-old brother Willie and their sister Caroline. Their job is simple: scare off birds munching on the crops. The kids are laughing, playing in the warm spring sun, unaware that danger is closing in. Suddenly, Apache raiders, likely from the Lipan or Mescalero bands, burst onto the scene. These groups were notorious for lightning-fast strikes in the Texas Hill Country, and this time, the Lehman kids are their target. The warriors, faces painted in terrifying patterns, surround them before they can react. Herman later recalls their hideous painted faces sparking pure terror in his heart. The attack is chaos. Herman bolts, but Chief Carnavista grabs him, slaps him hard, chokes him, and rips his clothes to shreds. Herman fights back, yelling and swinging, but he's no match for the seasoned warrior. Willie is caught where he sits, frozen. Caroline makes a desperate run for the house, but the Apache fire arrows at her, and she drops to the ground. Herman and Willie don't know it then, but she's playing dead, a quick thinking move that saves her life. The brothers aren't so lucky. The Apache strip them naked and throw them onto horses. As the raiders stampede through the rugged terrain, briars, thorns, and catclaw bushes tear at the boys' bare skin. The relentless ride leaves them sunburned and in agony. Herman, battered and bleeding, writes years later in his memoir that death just then would have been a relief. This wasn't just a random act of violence, it was a calculated move. The Apache used brutal tactics to break captives, instilling fear to ensure obedience. Stripping and beating Herman and Willie wasn't just cruelty, it was a way to strip away their sense of self, making them easier to control. The physical ordeal, cutting through thorny brush at high speed, was meant to exhaust and disorient them, crushing any thoughts of escape. In 1870, Apache raids were at their peak in Texas, with Texas Ranger reports documenting over 100 attacks on settlements that year alone. Kidnappings like this were strategic. The Apache, numbering around 8,000 to 10,000 across their bands, often took captives to bolster their population, weakened by disease and warfare, or to trade for ransoms. Between the 1860s and 1870s, an estimated 200 to 300 people were abducted in Texas, many of them children like Herman, chosen for their potential to adapt and integrate into the tribe. After the brutal capture, Herman and Willie Lehman, just 11 and 8 years old, are thrust into a terrifying new reality. The Apache paint their faces and dress them in tribal clothes, erasing their appearance as settler kids. Then, the brothers are torn apart, each sent with a different group of raiders. Herman, now alone with his captors, faces a grueling ordeal. They force him to eat raw meat, something his stomach can't handle. Each time he vomits, Chief Carnavista's anger flares, and he beats Herman, delivering blows that leave the boy bruised and trembling. To crush any hope of escape, the Apache tie Herman face down at night, his arms stretched out, a heavy stone pressed onto his back to pin him in place. Worse, they tell him his entire family was slaughtered in the raid, a lie meant to sever his ties to his old life. These tactics aren't just cruel, they're designed to break Herman emotionally, making him dependent on the Apache for survival, with no past to cling to. Meanwhile, Willie's story takes a different turn. His group of raiders runs into a band of Texas Rangers, likely one of the small units patrolling in 1870, before the Frontier Battalion was officially formed in 1874. As the Rangers give chase, Willie's horse starts to falter. The Apache riding with him, desperate to escape, throws the 8-year-old off to lighten the load and bolts. Dressed as an Apache, Willie is either mistaken for a tribal child or simply overlooked in the chaos. Left alone in the vast Texas wilderness, he somehow finds his way to a road. With grit beyond his years, he flags down a passing traveler, hitches a ride, and makes it back to Loyal Valley. At just 8 or 9, Willie's survival is nothing short of remarkable, a testament to his courage and quick thinking. Herman, though, isn't so fortunate. For weeks he's dragged across the frontier, sometimes going days without food, his body aching from constant beatings. The journey is punishing, designed to wear him down. When they finally reach the Apache village, likely deep in New Mexico or Arizona where Mescalero and Lipan bands held strongholds, Herman faces a chilling initiation. The Apache surround him in a frenzy of shouts and gunfire. They pierce his ears with searing hot irons, cut his hair, and beat him until he blacks out. This isn't random violence, it's a ritual to strip away his white identity, to test if he has the strength to become one of them. In 1870, Texas Rangers, numbering only about 150 to 200 active members according to the Texas Ranger Hall of Fame, were stretched thin chasing raiders like these. The Apache knew this, and used tactics like splitting captives to prevent coordinated escapes, a strategy noted in military reports from Fort Concho, Texas. For Herman, the physical pain was only the starters. Real battle was the emotional isolation, cut off from everything he'd ever known. After the brutal initiation, Herman Lehman, still just 11, wakes up in the Apache village, his body aching but cleaned, bathed, and oiled by his captors. They lead him to a blanket spread on the ground, where a tense moment unfolds. In front of him is food: sun-baked bread, roasted meat, and raw meat. The Apache watch him closely, their eyes locked on his every move. Herman, starving and scared, makes a split-second choice and grabs the raw meat, tearing into it. The tribe erupts in cheers, elated by his decision. They name him Enda, meaning white boy, a simple but significant mark of acceptance. In his memoir, Herman later writes that choosing the cooked food, tied to the world of civilized man, would have likely led to torture and death. This moment isn't just about hunger, it's a test, and by picking the Apache way, Herman takes his first real step toward becoming one of them, a choice that means survival. Now part of the tribe, Herman is put to work as Chief Carnovista's servant. He fetches water, lights the chief's pipe, and runs errands, always under watchful eyes. Hez also thrown into wrestling matches with Apache boys, who grin at his scrappy spirit. They like his fight, and slowly he earns their respect. But even as he's accepted, fear clings to him. Alone watching the tribe's horses, he sits on the prairie and weeps, a feeling he calls homesickness. It's not the torture or beatings that break him, he never cries then, always yelling defiance or snarling for revenge. It's the quiet moments, the loneliness, that hit hardest, showing just how young and isolated this 11-year-old still is, caught between worlds. That loneliness pushes Herman to a desperate act. One day, overwhelmed, He grabs a water bag, jumps on a horse, and gallops east, hoping to escape. But the Apache are ready. They've been expecting this, treating it like a test of his loyalty. When his horse trips, they catch him easily. Instead of killing him, they tie him up at night to keep him close, but during the day they assign boys to stay with him, their chatter and games easing his solitude. This leniency isn't softness, it's strategy. The Apache see something in Herman, a spark they want to mold, not snuff out, valuing his defiance over immediate punishment. Over time, Herman starts to change. He picks up the Apache language, word by word, until he can speak it fluently. They teach him to craft bows and arrows, skills he hones with care. He learns to make shields from buffalo hide, thick enough to stop arrows, and sometimes the Apache tests them by shooting at him, a heart-pounding lesson in trust. Carnavista's wife, Laughing Eyes, takes a special liking to him. With no son of her own, she showers him with motherly warmth, a rare comfort for a boy far from home. These skills and bonds aren't just practical. They're reshaping Herman, pulling him deeper into Apache life, making their world his own. This transformation happens against a stark backdrop. In the 1870s, Apache bands, including the Lipan, Mescalero, and Chiricahua, number around 8,000 to 10,000, according to U.S. Army estimates, with raiding parties of 10 to 50 warriors striking fast and fading into the desert. Their way of life depends on resources like buffalo, whose hides are vital for shields. But by 1875, Texas buffalo herds have plummeted from 20 million in 1850 to under 1 million, hunted to near extinction, putting pressure on tribes like the Apache. For Herman, learning to live as one of them isn't just about survival. It's about becoming part of a culture fighting to hold on in a rapidly changing world. By 1873, Herman Lehman, now 14, is no longer the scared boy snatched from a Texas wheat field. He's becoming Apache, and the tribe starts testing him in their world of raids and survival. At first, they use him as fodder, sending him on risky tasks like scouting for ranchers during horse thefts. He's expendable, a kid they can afford to lose, but Herman keeps coming back, pulling off these jobs with a grit that surprises them. His success earns nods of respect from warriors who once saw him as just a captive. In one raid, he's tasked with guarding a Mexican buffalo hunter captured by the Apache. The man, hoping to save himself, spills the location of his camp. The Apache take the bait, but it's a trap. As gunfire erupts, the hunter turns on Herman, pelting him with rocks. Herman, quick and steady, fires an arrow into the man's arm, stopping him cold. Chief Carnovista, enraged by the betrayal, orders Herman to finish him. Herman draws his bow, sends an arrow through the man's heart, and, under Carnovista's command, scalps him. This isn't just a kill, it's a rite of passage. That moment, bloody and final, severs any lingering ties to the moral code of his white upbringing, binding him to the Apache warrior way. By this point, Herman is all in. At 14, he sees himself as Apache, not Herman Lehman. He fears and hates white people, the settlers he once called family. He's forgotten his English, his real name. Even the idea of escape, the boy who wept for home, is gone, replaced by someone who lives for the tribe. This kind of transformation isn't unique to Herman. Other captives, like Cynthia Ann Parker, taken by Comanches in 1836, also shed their past identities, molded by the psychological weight of years in a new culture. For Herman, it's not just survival, it's a complete rewrite of who he is. His new identity gets put to the test in a heart-pounding encounter around 1873. During a skirmish with Texas Rangers, Herman's horse is shot out from under him, pinning him to the ground. His Apache companions, seeing he's trapped, grab his bow and abandon him to save themselves. The Rangers, spotting his pale skin, realize he's white and plan to come back for him. But when they return, Herman's gone. Using skills the Apache taught him, he drags himself free, crawls through grass just 7 to 8 inches tall, and hides in a shallow depression, covering himself with dirt and brush. The Rangers, baffled, search every bush and tuft for miles, but he's vanished. One ranger, Thomas P. Gillespie, later wrote they were completely mystified, unable to believe a boy could disappear in an open plain. Herman, only 14, then treks 300 miles alone across hostile terrain to rejoin his tribe, who thought he was dead. Carnavista, impressed by his cunning and endurance, names him a petty chief, a rare honor for a captive. This escape cements Herman's place among the Apache and proves their reputation as the most elusive people ever, masters of stealth who could outwit anyone. This all plays out in a brutal era. The Texas Rangers, with their frontier battalion formalized in 1874, were hunting Apache and Comanche raiders, clashing in battles like the 1873 Battle of Palo Duro Canyon, which crushed much of the tribe's resistance. Apache trails, stretching 200 to 400 miles, relied on deep knowledge of the land to dodge pursuers, as noted in military reports from Fort Sill. For Herman, becoming a warrior isn't just about fighting, it's about mastering the Apache way of survival in a world closing in around them. By 1874, the world Herman Lehman has grown into as an Apache warrior is crumbling. The American juggernaut is tightening its grip on the Southwest, with over 10,000 U.S. troops stationed across the region by 1875, according to Army records. The Apache, masters of evasion, dodge Texas Rangers, U.S. soldiers and Mexican rurals. But it's getting harder. Their territory is shrinking and resources are scarce. This sparks tensions not just with outsiders but within their own ranks. Rival Apache bands like the Chiricahua and Mescalero clash over hunting grounds, while old grudges with the Comanche flare up. The pressure of these condensed territories turns allies into enemies, and the Apache are caught in a vice, squeezed by American expansion and internal strife. Desperate for a way out, the Apache search for new lands where they can live free. They scout rugged stretches of desert and mountain, but most are barren, barely able to sustain them. One spot seems promising, with clear water and plentiful game, but there's a catch. It's littered with gold. Chief Carnavista, wise to the ways of the white man, knows this is trouble. Has seen what happened during the 1849 California gold rush, when gold fever drove settlers to overrun Indian lands, leaving tribes displaced or dead. He warns that Americans will swarm if they find it, and Hes right. The Apache can't stay, forced to keep moving, chasing a freedom that's slipping away. By mid-1875, hope runs thin. Quanah Parker, a Comanche leader who surrendered in June 1875 after the Red River War, convinces Herman's Apache band to head to the Fort Sill Reservation in Oklahoma. It's a bitter choice, but they go, joining over 1,500 Apache and Comanche already there, as noted by the Oklahoma Historical Society. Life at Fort Sill is grim. Food is scarce, government agents watch their every move, and the Apache chafe under rules that strip their independence. They can't stand it. In a bold move, they break out, killing several soldiers as they flee. To shake their pursuers, they lead the soldiers down waterless trails, a brutal tactic that works. Herman's band later finds 9 scalped bodies, soldiers who died of thirst, their horses collapsed beside them. It's a fleeting victory, but the truth hits hard. The lands they escape to are desolate, with too little water or game to survive. Defiance keeps them alive, but desperation is closing in, forcing them back to Fort Sill. This moment reflects the broader collapse of Apache resistance. The Red River War, fought from 1874 to 1875, crushed the last major stand of Comanche and Apache bands, with 400 Indians killed or captured. Fort Sill, set up in 1869, becomes a grim symbol of containment, where poor conditions spark frequent escape attempts. For Herman and his band, the reservation isn't just a cage, it's a sign that their way of life, built on freedom and mobility, is being choked out by an unstoppable force. Back at Fort Sill in 1875, the Apache are trapped in a reservation that feels more like a prison. One thing that flows freely here is whiskey, and it's poison for Herman's band. The liquor fuels ugly clashes with a rival Apache group, especially their medicine man, who seems to take pleasure in tormenting them. Things boil over one night, during what Herman calls a carousel, a drunken spree that spirals out of control. A fight erupts over whiskey, leaving one of Herman's band wounded. In retaliation, they steal the rival group's beer, a bold move that sparks a massive brawl. Soldiers step in to break it up, but the damage is done. Whiskey isn't just a vice here, it's a wedge, splitting the Apache apart when they need unity most against the American pressure closing in. Herman's band, fed up with Fort Sill's restrictions, plans to bolt, but they can't resist one last night of drinking, and it's a disaster. The camp descends into chaos, with women fighting over infidelity, some even killed in the madness. As they pack to flee, the rival Apache band catches up, seeking revenge. In a brutal ambush, likely around 1876, Herman's group is torn apart. Most of his band, including Chief Carnovista, are killed. Carnovista dies shielding Herman from a warrior's spear, a final act of loyalty. Left standing, Herman faces the rival medicine man, a figure feared as untouchable, said to be immune to death. The man charges, waving his shield and a Winchester rifle, shouting that this is Herman's last day. Herman, just 15, ducks behind a rock, trading taunts. They circle, the medicine man's bullets ricocheting off stone. Then, Herman seizes his chance, firing an arrow under the man's shield, hitting him square. As the man begs for mercy, Herman sends another arrow through his heart. Killing the medicine man proves Herman's warrior grit, but it paints a target on his back. With his band wiped out, Herman knows he's a marked man. Any Apache who hears of the medicine man's death will hunt him. He grabs what he can, a gray stallion, and some supplies, and rides off alone. For 8 months, he hides in a narrow canyon, living off a small stream and game, sheltered by cottonwood trees and a cavern. It's a lonely existence, but he's safe, until one night in 1876, under a full moon, he hears voices, faint at first, then a loud laugh that chills him. Creeping closer, he spots a fire and Apache figures, warriors he recognizes, ones who know he killed their medicine man. If they find him, he's dead. Heart racing, he packs his gear, mounts his horse, and slips away, riding north into Comanche territory, leaving the Apache world behind. This chaos wasn't unusual at Fort Sill. U.S. Indian Agency reports note 20 to 30 violent incidents between tribes there in 1875 and 1876, often fueled by alcohol and old rivalries. Medicine men held immense spiritual power in Apache culture, and their deaths, as ethnographic studies show, sparked fierce vendettas. For Herman, killing one marks both his strength and his exile. His flight into solitude isn't just about survival. It's a stark reflection of his total isolation, cut off from the white world he's forgotten and the Apache world that now wants him dead. It's around 1876, and 15-year-old Herman Lehman is on the run, a fugitive with nowhere to go. The Apache want him dead for killing their medicine man, and the white world is a distant memory. With no safe haven, he makes a bold choice: seek out the Comanche, a tribe notorious for slaughtering trespassers. He doesn't speak their language, and his plan is shaky at best, relying on hand gestures and sheer guts. One night, after tracking a Comanche group, he creeps into their camp under cover of darkness. Around a flickering fire, warriors laugh and tell stories. Herman, his long hair tangled and clothes ragged from months alone, summons every ounce of courage and steps into the light. The Comanche freeze, then scatter, mistaking his wild, battle-hardened look for some kind of threat. Herman stands there, heart pounding, wondering if he's made a fatal mistake. His daring move screams desperation, but it also shows how deeply he's embraced his Indian identity, trusting it to carry him through. The warriors creep back, weapons ready, and for a moment it looks grim. An old woman urges them to kill him, but a Comanche who speaks Apache steps forward and they start talking. Another warrior squints at Herman and recognizes him from years ago, when Herman, as an Apache, outran him in a horse race arranged by Carnovista. That memory breaks the ice. Herman lays out his story. Born white, raised Apache, now cast out after his band was killed, and hating the white men who've taken everything. The chief listens, then agrees to let him stay, naming him Montachina and demanding he take on the duties of a Comanche warrior. It's not just Luca's acceptance taps into the web of inter-tribal ties, where horse races and gambling, common among Plains tribes, often smoothed over tensions or sealed alliances. Herman dives into Comanche life. He joins raids against the Tonkawa, a rival tribe, and U.S. soldiers, proving his worth in battle. Quanah Parker's family takes him in, treating him like a son, a bond that grows deep over time. But the Comanche, like the Apache, are fighting a losing battle. By 1878, buffalo herds, once millions strong, have dwindled to under 100,000, per Smithsonian estimates, starved out by American hunters and settlers. This chokes the Comanche's way of life, tying them to shrinking lands and dwindling resources. For Herman, the Comanche aren't just a new home, they're his people. His fierce loyalty, raiding alongside them, shows he's turned his back on the white world for good, fully committed to the life of a Plains warrior. This all unfolds in a pivotal moment for the Comanche. By 1875, they number just 2,000 to 3,000, down from their days as the dominant Plains tribe, according to the Texas State Historical Association. Quanah Parker, a towering figure, surrendered at Fort Sill in June 1875 after the Red River War, choosing reservation life over starvation. As a mediator between tribes and the U.S., he shapes the Comanche's path forward. For Herman, joining them is a fresh start, but it's also a step into another tribe staring down the end of their freedom. By 1878, Herman Lehman, now 17, is fully Comanche, living on the Fort Sill Reservation in Oklahoma. He's Montachina, a warrior adopted by Quanah Parker's family, who treat him like their own. But his presence as a white boy among the Comanche starts turning heads. Word of him spreads beyond the reservation, reaching his mother in Texas. For 9 years, she's never stopped searching, checking every fort and reservation for her lost son. Her persistence pays off when she connects with General Ranald S. Mackenzie, who commands Fort Sill in 1878. Mackenzie, aware of a white teenager among the Comanche, arranges for Herman's return to Loyal Valley, Texas, in early 1879. His mother's relentless hope, holding fast through nearly a decade of uncertainty, shows a family bond that refuses to break, even in the face of impossible odds. Herman, though, wants no part of it. He believes his family is dead, a lie the Apache fed him years ago. He's Comanche now, heart and soul, and the idea of leaving feels like betrayal. Quanah Parker steps in, gently persuading him to go. He promises Herman can return, if it's not his family, arguing life off the reservation, free from government handouts, might be better. Reluctantly, Herman agrees. Escorted by soldiers, he arrives in Loyal Valley, a small German settlement of under 500 people, according to the Texas Almanac. A crowd of 300 gathers to see him, buzzing with excitement, but Herman stands there blank-faced. He doesn't recognize his mother or siblings, and their English sounds like gibberish. After 9 years as an Apache and Comanche, he's a stranger in his own hometown. His cultural transformation so deep he's more at home on the plains than in a settler village. His family doesn't give up. His brother Willie and sister Mina spot a scar on his arm, a mark from a childhood accident when Mina accidentally cut him with a hatchet. That scar sparks something in Herman. Memories of playing with his siblings, long buried, start to surface. He hears his name, Herman, repeated over and over, and it feels faintly familiar. Slowly, the fog of his past lifts, and he realizes these are his people, but accepting them isn't easy. He calls them pale faces and feels no connection, even trying to slip away more than once, only for Willie to chase him down. He refuses to sleep on a bed, choosing the hard ground instead, and delights in scaring neighborhood kids with Comanche war whoops, bow in hand. Over months, maybe years, his family's love chips away at his resistance. They pull him back, bit by bit, though he never fully sheds his Comanche ways. His slow, painful adjustment shows the mental toll of reclaiming an identity he'd left behind, torn between two worlds that both claim him. This reunion happens under the shadow of a changing frontier. General Mackenzie, a key player in the Red River War, oversees Fort Sill, managing 2,000 to 3,000 Apache and Comanche by 1878, per U.S. Army records. His role in sending Herman home marks one of the last chapters of a war that forced tribes onto reservations. For Herman, returning to Loyal Valley is more than a homecoming. It's a collision of identities, shaped by a mother's unbreakable will and a Comanche leader's wisdom. Herman Lehman's life after 1879 is a remarkable balancing act. Back in Loyal Valley, he slowly rebuilds his place with his white family, learning to live as a settler again. But he never cuts ties with the Comanche. Adopted by Quanah Parker's family in 1877, he's an enrolled member of the tribe, visiting them often and treated as a full Comanche, complete with tribal benefits from the government, until his death in 1932. He moves between these worlds, a Texas farmer by day, a Comanche brother when he rides to Oklahoma. This dual identity isn't just personal. It's a living bridge across the cultural chasm of the frontier, where lines between settler and native blurred in ways most could never imagine. Herman's story, laid bare in his 1899 memoir 9 Years Among the Indians, is more than one boy's survival. It's a window into the raw brutality of frontier life, where Apache raids claimed over 1,000 settler lives in Texas alone from 1865 to 1875. It shows the resilience of captives like Herman, who didn't just endure but adapted, becoming warriors in a world that demanded strength. The Apache, with their unmatched stealth, evaded 5,000 U.S. troops in Texas in 1870, striking and vanishing like ghosts, as Texas Ranger reports attest. Yet, their way of life couldn't withstand the American tide. The Indian Wars, spanning the 1860s to 1890s, crushed the Apache and Comanche, forcing over 90% of Plains Indians onto reservations by 1880, per U.S. Census data. Herman's journey mirrors this broader tragedy, a tale of survival through forced assimilation and the loss of a free, nomadic culture under the weight of expansion. Looking back, Herman's path is a staggering transformation. He starts as a white child, becomes an Apache warrior, then a Comanche adoptee, and finally a man who straddles two worlds. His mother's 9-year search, checking every fort and reservation, never giving up hope, anchors his return. Quanah Parker's guidance, urging him to reconnect with his family while honoring his Comanche ties, shapes his future. Together, they forge a legacy that's unique, a testament to the human spirit's ability to adapt, endure, and find belonging in the face of unimaginable upheaval. Herman doesn't just survive. He carves out a life that defies the boundaries of the frontier, living as both settler and native until the end.